the key to confidence is about having clarity. So the clearer you can be, the more confident you'll be. If you're really specific about what it is you want to do or you want to achieve, that confidence comes. It's like the feeling of confidence comes later. Like it doesn't come before the act, it comes after.
Hello, my friends. Kerrie Phipps here with the Connect with Confidence podcast. And I'm super excited to be talking to Sammi Jaeger, who I met, I think, first of all, in Singapore. Would that be correct, Sammi?
Yeah, I think that was the first time we met in person, but I think maybe we'd socially interacted in the B1G1 community prior.
Yeah. And so it was at the B1G1 convention, and that must have been 2018. And
yeah.
You were doing amazing things then. I think you're doing amazing things now. So I don't know what happened. We just connected again the other day because you're doing a podcast. I think you might have invited me to be part of that podcast. And I was like, can I interview you? Is that what happened?
Yeah, it's a nice exchange, right? Podcasters hanging out with podcasters, having cool conversations.
I love it. I love that we can just have conversations. And I know that a conversation with you will be just wildly valuable for people that are listening, because people who are listening are wanting to connect, wanting to make a bigger difference in the world. And that if we can step forward more confidently to say the things we want to say, ask the things that we want to ask, and listen to people, then amazing things can happen. And I just love that we start this conversation on Zoom with both of us have this beautiful Sustainable Development Goals, colourful wall poster in our offices.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
Yeah, so do you want to tell us first about your connection with the global goals?
Yeah, so for anyone who's not familiar, the United Nations Global Goals are a set of 17 goals that the United Nations have set for us to work towards achieving in 2030. So I first got exposed to these global goals back in, I think it was around 2016. And I had attended a business conference, and in the middle of the event, they played this video, and it was, "We the people, we must change. We must be the generation." And I fundamentally changed. In that moment, I was crying in a stadium full of, 300, 400 people. And it was just like that. It was like, there is so much bigger than you. You can be part of something and make an actual change in the way that you live, the way that you do business, the way that you lead. Because if you want to focus on solving small problems, you can, or you can step up and solve some really big ones. And here's 17 of them.
Wow, I love that. And I love that the 17th goal is partnership for the goals. And I think that this, in a small way, is working towards goal 17, because we are partnering. We're sharing our voices, we're encouraging people and pointing to the goals. But when we work with other people who are committed to making a bigger difference, then it's incredible what can happen. But as you started talking about that video, I just pictured the guy making the video. Like, do you realize the impact of the things that you produce? Like, I wonder, they would hope that it would change people's perspectives. And sometimes it's so many things, and maybe you see a video and you go, yeah, that's what I've been trying to say. But one moment can be so profound. And so high fives to that video producer, that team that put that together.
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's not complex. It's a compilation of incredible people, everyday people, reading out this manifesto, and it's just compiled in a way that it just gets you, and you can really connect with the people and the idea and the why do we need to do this. So if anyone hasn't seen it, go get on the YouTube, United Nations Global Goals, We the People.
Beautiful. And we can put that in the show notes also. Yeah, so tell me about when you were younger. Like, what were your aspirations when you were a child? I didn't warn you that we'd go this far back, but
yeah, we can go way back. So I'm a country kid. I grew up in Barossa Valley, South Australia.
Cool.
I went to a school with like less than 1,000 people. I rode quad bikes and have scars up and down my legs. But I also had a contrasting parallel that I absolutely loved, clothes and fashion and girly stuff. So I had quite a full spectrum kind of childhood. I had a lot of like space and freedom, but then also not a lot of entertainment. So we had to get creative a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Some of my like early childhood kind of memories are like me organizing little fashion parades and, you know, little performances and things. And I think that kind of showed up in my career, and I went on to become an event manager. But you know, what were my aspirations? I really don't know. I don't have a clear memory of being like, oh, I'm going to go and do this one thing and that's going to be great and I'm going to work towards that for my whole life. I felt like, you know, I had friends who had such clear transparency. It was like, you know, I know that I want to be a special needs teacher and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm so passionate about that. And they went down that path. I've had much more of a cross-pollinated kind of career and life. I've worked in fitness, I've worked in hospitality, I've worked in events, I've worked in business, I've worked in recruitment, community building, education and training, whole spectrum. So I don't know, that's probably a nice question to reflect and go, you know, did little Sammi achieve what she wanted to? I guess so. I'm here, I'm happy, living a pretty amazing life.
Yeah. And I'm hearing that your career kind of reflects your childhood that was so broad spectrum, I think you said. And I totally relate to that childhood too, growing up on a farm and, you know, riding all the, actually, maybe it's just there's a few years between us, but we didn't really have quad bikes then. It was just like regular motorbikes. And later on, Dad got a quad bike for Mum, but so we never took that as seriously. But, you know, motorbikes, horses, which that's where my scars came from. They don't behave quite so well as motorbikes. They just kind of do what you tell them. There's been so many experiences that would have really brought you to where you are now and what you're doing. So do you want to tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so I have founded a business alongside my husband, Nathan, called The Fuel Collective. And it's wrapped around this idea that what if we had a collective of people who were all actively fueling and refueling their relationships? And that's their relationships with themselves, their relationships with their romantic interests, but also their friends and their family and their peers and their colleagues. So we really want to create a collective where people are actively working on this. It's not just like, oh, I'm in a relationship and that's kind of just ticking along as we go, but it's about collecting a group of people who want to actively improve their relationship week in, month in, year in, decade in.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm excited about coming on your podcast with Lyndon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to taking a little peek behind the curtains of what you two get up to.
And you know what's funny? Today's about you, but I'm just going to tell you this. I did a Facebook Live just after you invited me to be on your podcast. And I said to you, I can bring Lyndon on the podcast too, if you like, since it's about relationships. And we were in the middle of the Asia Professional Speakers Convention. It was a hectic week, but we went for a quick walk and I did a Facebook Live talking about it. And it had like more than double the amount of views of other ones that I'd done that week. And I said to Lyndon, people just love it when you're in my Facebook Lives.
Lyndon's the real star.
Because he can't stop hugging me. Like he's so affectionate. It's hilarious. And so people are commenting on like, oh, he's so sweet. He's, you know, just like, yeah, just getting
I think
cozy.
that's something I've learned around that sort of stuff is that the things that you think might be boring are actually not. Like people want to know, they want to see, they want to take the look at, you know, what's going on, you know, quote unquote behind closed doors, or like what are the cogs that are turning. Yeah. And the things that are like, you know, mundane or boring to you because you do them day in, day out can actually be really interesting to other people.
Yeah, this is right. And relationships are intriguing. Like somebody said, is he going to spill? Because I might have said I was a bit nervous about bringing him on. Someone said, is he going to spill the beans? Are there beans? And I was like, oh, there's coffee beans for sure. Because it's something that he's become obsessed with recently.
I'm a big coffee drinker. I love my coffee, good quality. Yeah, shout out to Honor in Sydney for keeping caffeinated.
Fantastic. Yeah, we've got a few quality coffee providers, which is nice. So tell us about you and Nathan. How long have you been, how long have you known him? How long have you been married?
So we both went to that little school of less than 1,000 people.
Oh, cool.
Nath was a year older than me, and we had separate circles of friends that overlapped. And then a couple of years out of school, we moved in together as housemates. And then during that year, with such proximity, we both got to see each other in a different light. And somewhere in that year, we fell in love.
Oh,
And I that wasn't my plan. I was actually planning to head overseas at the end of that, or at the start of the following year. I had a contract to jump on a cruise ship. This is back to the fitness industry.
Yeah.
Where I was going to head to London and do a couple of weeks of induction, and then jump on a cruise ship for 12 to 24 months, depending on how much fun I was having. But yeah, Nathan and I really fell in love, and I had to have this moment of like, what have we been doing these past few months? It was over a summer. We were really young. And I was like, do I go on this adventure, or do I stay and invest in what this might be? And I decided to stay. And here we are.
Wow.
We got married in 2012, and still we got remarried again for our 5th wedding anniversary.
Oh,
and
cool.
I think we're coming up, I think this year must be 8. Yeah, 8 years married, but we were together 4 or 5 years before we got married. So yeah.
Wow. And so what inspired you to get remarried?
I love this question because I believe that our relationship is made up of like these beautiful romantic rituals, these moments that you can inject real opportunities for connection with your partner throughout the day or throughout the week or whatever they might be. And for us, we'd kind of always talked about it as something that would be fun to do. Like, we had such a great day getting married. Like, it was honestly just the best. And if anyone's on the fence about whether or not they should do it or don't do it, like, you get to have all the people that you love the most in the same place at the same time. That will never happen again until you're dead. And even then, some of those guests will be dead, so they won't even be there.
Yeah, and you're not there to enjoy it.
Yeah, so we just loved it so much, and we did it our way, that we were like, we want to do it again at some point. And then in the first 5 years of our marriage, we moved interstate. So we moved from South Australia to Sydney. We had some grandparents pass away. We had some friendships move from, I guess, that core inner circle out. And we had some of our really good mates who had fallen in love and got married and done their thing. And these were couples that we thought were going to be together forever. Like, there was no wavering thought in my mind that these two people wouldn't be together forever, growing old together. And we had maybe 4 or 5 of our mates separating, going through really awful breakups, and in some cases divorce. And it gave Nathan and I the opportunity to stop and reflect on our relationship and our marriage and go, I choose you today as much as I chose you 5 years ago, and I'm going to continue choosing you. So much has changed for us, but I still choose you, and I want us to keep going. And I'm so proud of what we've done, and I'm so proud of what we're achieving, and I want to keep doing this. Let's keep doing it, and let's keep celebrating our love.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it was, and it was so cool because the way that we did our vow renewal, we were traveling overseas with 2 of Nath's groomsmen and their partners. So there was the 6 of us in Cuba at a big fancy resort. It was our one splurge for the whole big trip. Wow. And we did it on the beach, and it was just fun. It was so fun, and it was so different than the first time that we did it. It was super low key. Like, we got ready together, and we wrote new vows. The first time we did it, I don't think either of us had the confidence to get up there and speak our own vows. So we had the generic, very common set of vows. And this time around, it was like, no, I've got commitments that I want to make to you out loud, and I want to take this moment to honor that and recommit to some things and say some things out loud that I didn't get to say last time. We were so young the first time we got married. We were 20, I think I was 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just a really beautiful opportunity to honor what we'd done, what we'd achieved, but also set some intent for what was to come.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like there's more gravitas to the occasion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we will absolutely do it again. We will for sure do it again. I'd love to do it in Vegas, maybe like a, Elvis impersonator white suit in a really tragic, off off the strip kind of drive up wedding. I just think that would be fun. I just think what a cool experience to have. So, maybe 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So you certainly got the fun side of it, but also the depth. Like it clearly is so meaningful for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was with intent, and it was something that, we were aware that people were going to be like, what? You've only been married 5 years and you're renewing your vows again. Like, what went so wrong that you need to do it again? So there was a little bit of like that. And it was like, oh, we're just going to swim in our own lane and do our own thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was definitely, it wasn't just a party. Like, it was fun to have our mates with us and party on the beach and have some drinks and a cake and all that sort of stuff. But it really was a really nice moment for the two of us.
Yeah, that's lovely. And it sounds like there's a perception that renewing vows means that there's, something went horribly wrong and you're like, oh, okay, we're back on track. We're reconnecting. But it sounds like it can also be just we refocus on our goals all the time, don't we?
Yeah.
Like we come into the office Monday morning and just go, yep, this is where I'm headed. This is what I'm doing. So it doesn't mean that we're falling off the wagon, but we are taking things more seriously or looking at things with a more, grown-up perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, reflecting on it, it probably is. That was probably a really important moment where it was like, okay, we're closing the book on that chapter and we're opening a new next stage kind of. I feel like you've probably heard it before. People talk about this idea that you have 3 or 4 really core relationships, deep loves in your life. And I think like Nathan and I have had this incredible relationship that has evolved with us. It's like, we were super young. We were like partying on weeknights while we were both studying, living in share houses together with, crazy housemates, people coming and going all the time. And then we kind of went through that stage of, first careers and jobs and, still poor, still didn't have any money because we're like entry-level intern rates, and then we've kind of evolved and set new targets and grown in our careers, grown in our, our personal identity and who we have become and continue to become. So I kind of like this idea that we're just honoring that relationship and, moving forward to the next one. Whereas I think some other people experience those depth of relationship or core relationships with different people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because we certainly connect and relate to people differently as we grow older. And sometimes it's different people and sometimes it's the one person.
Yeah,
that's interesting because my relationship with Lyndon is so much different to what it was 26 years ago.
Yeah. And aren't you glad?
Yes, so much more fun now.
Yeah. Imagine how good you'll be in another 26 years.
Yeah, that's a cool thought. Anyway, today's about you. I notice on your Sustainable Development Goals poster at the top, it looks like it says better relationships equals better world.
Yes, it does. So that is, I guess, the core mission or core philosophy that Nathan and I have set our sights on with Fuel Collective. And it's around this idea that if we have better relationships, and it's not about measuring it, because I think we can infinitely be better. There's never an end point where you're like, I'm done growing, I'm done evolving, I'm done, you might stay stuck, but it doesn't mean there's not scope above you. Yeah. So I think we settled on better because it's not an end state. It's never an end state.
Yeah.
But better relationships is, if we have the ability to connect and communicate with our romantic partner, our friends, our family, our network, our peers, our colleagues, our stakeholders, we're going to have a better quality of life. the quality of your relationships drastically impacts the quality of your life. So if we have better relationships and we aren't stuck solving these small relationship kind of problems, or sometimes they can feel really big, but in the gravitas of the world, they are small problems. So if we can all have better, healthy, happy, thriving relationships, I feel like we're going to be able to live more in purpose, live more of our why, and spend some of that energy solving some bigger problems. Yeah. So in turn, we can have a better world.
Absolutely, because when we look at all the global goals, they're all related to people, really. And yeah, when we have healthy relationships at home, we're going to be more productive at work. We're going to be able to,
do more of what we want to do, be healthier, live longer.
Yeah, and be in a clearer headspace to work on solving problems. I want to ask you to also share about, just business for good. I think we've covered it a little bit, but through our, B1G1 partnerships, we're giving to different projects throughout the world. And, I'd love to hear about maybe some of your favorites and just how does that work in your world?
So for Fuel Collective, I went on a pretty big deep dive journey, like inward in myself, to go like, well, what do I really believe? What do I really think will have the most impact? Which one of these goals is my beacon, is the one that I want to really throw some weight behind. And I thought so much about, like, do we want to give percentage of profits? Do we want to give percentage of revenue? Do we want to give on a buy one, give one product basis? How did we want to embed giving into the fabric of the business? I didn't want it to be this thing that you see so many businesses do, where it's like, oh, we've got this thing, oh, and we give to this ad hoc charity. Like, I really wanted giving to be fundamentally part of who we are and what we do and why we exist. So Fuel Collective is really about having win for clients, and that means couples, strengthening their relationship. I want it to be a win for Nathan and I, that the business serves us and the life that we want to live. I want it to be a win for our team and the people that we work with, and I want it to be a win for the world. I really strive for that quad win. When we're making those decisions. So I kind of had this internal struggle, I guess, where I was like, if I pick one, then does that mean I can't care about the others when I do care about the others? And, if I have a couple of wines and get up on my high horse, there's a few of them that really touch a nerve for me, more so than others. And that will be different for everyone. We've all had our different lives and experiences and, things that we care about. And that's great. And that's, that's amazing. So we kind of went with a hybrid model where when we have guests on the podcast, we get them to choose, which project do you care about? Which goal do you care about? And then we support a project in line with that. Whereas in the business, in Fuel Collective, when we make money, when we draw in revenue, we support education projects. And I really believe that education is how we're going to unlock everything. Because if we educate our people, it lifts them up above the poverty line. We can make better choices, and then they have we have a better awareness of what is a good decision for our environment, what is a good decision for our economy, what is a good decision for our sustainability. So I think all of that comes from education. So that's where I've chosen to support upfront.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And and I'd encourage anyone listening to check out the global goals, like you've checked out that video before, and B1G1, because it is, I think, a big thing with like making a difference, wanting to be change makers in the world, is that we can get really discouraged by just seeing small impacts or small ripple effects. But the fact is, it goes so much further than we realize. And I love that through B1G1 community, we can see more of the impact, like it's more measurable. And I keep reminding people, you make a bigger difference than you know. And, while you know how many people have listened to your podcast, you don't know what action some people might have taken because of that. They might have sat down and had a really honest conversation with somebody. They might have had a turning point in their relationship that takes it in a healthy direction. And yeah, I love these conversations. I could talk to you for hours.
But I think that's why it's so important that we lean in and we create things.
Yes.
And we push past that fear or that hesitation. But you never know. You never know the ripple effect of the thing that you said or the idea that you shared, or you will never know how far it goes.
Absolutely. And I like that you've talked about, pushing past that. It reminds me of when I started the podcast. Lyndon took some words that I'd written. It was kind of the bottom of like a long paragraph I'd just written about the podcast, I think. And then up the top, he wrote, overcoming or leaving behind inadequacy and making a bigger difference in the world. And I was like, oh, where'd you get that from? Like, it just felt a little vulnerable. And he's like, you wrote it. And I was like, oh yeah, but that wasn't like for the headline. That was just something I tucked into a paragraph, Yeah. But we do all have different things that we might or different reasons that we might hold back. And so I'm wondering, what was it like when you first started your podcast?
Yeah, so initially Nathan and I sort of started talking about it around December of 2019. And it was like, okay, well, we're entering a new market where neither of us are qualified. We don't have any fancy piece of paper. We don't have an established network. This is our first business outside of my consulting. How do we want to do this? And it was like, well, the intent is to share ideas and content with people to help them refuel their relationships. And how could we do that where we get to have cool conversations with people while adding value and establishing some credibility? So full transparency. So it kind of creates this nice hybrid of having the podcast where we get to softly pitch. We get a little bit of profile. We're regularly publishing content. We're building that audience, and eventually we'll be able to launch a product. We had all these intents for like, okay, the realization that it stacks all these chips, and it was like, okay, you have to do it. Like, it ticks all these boxes. What else are you going to come up with that's going to tick these boxes? And it was like, okay, all right, we need to get comfortable with this. And we had to have some conversations around like, okay, if we're going to talk about relationships and we're going to talk about our relationship, where is the boundary? How deep are we willing to go? Nate's happily employed. So what would you be comfortable with your employer hearing about you, or our sex life, or, any of that sort of stuff? Like, are you happy if we get someone on to talk about porn addiction? Like, do you want that to come up in Google? We had that sort of stuff. We had that sort of chat around, okay, well, what's the barrier? What's the concern? Are you scared? Am I scared? Definitely. And we had said like, okay, we're launching a podcast about relationships. Wouldn't it be cool if we launched it on Valentine's Day?
Oh, nice.
And we were like, all right, that's what we're going to shoot towards. We're going to get all the bits and pieces going. We had no idea what we were doing. Neither of us had done this before. Microphones, speakers, audio equipment, editing software. How do you even pitch a podcast to a guest? All of that sort of stuff, we had to figure it out. So we got to this point where we'd probably recorded maybe 7 episodes and we hadn't yet launched. And we were approaching that February 14, and it was like, And if I'm really honest, the delay in launching, because we ended up launching, I think it was end of March, was our fear. It was like, okay, we've done all this work and now we're about to share it with the world, and it might be nothing. But then you have to, if you're not willing for it to be nothing, you're also not willing for it to be something.
Yeah.
So we had to have the come to Jesus conversation and go, when are we doing this? We're doing all this work, we're having all these cool conversations, and it's not helping anybody. It's not helping anybody because nobody can listen to it. Yeah.
There's always something that, it's like we've just got to press the button, or we've just press record or press publish. And were you and Nathan kind of in the same place, or was it like sometimes one of you would have a good day about it and go, let's just publish it now, and the other was
I think this is like the problem when you've got accountability where it's just the two of you, right? Because it's like, I'll let you off and then you let me off and then I'll let you off and then you let me off. So you kind of need like that third one who's like not going to have the same day as the other two.
Yeah.
I think it was just like we got to a point where it's like we know that we both knew that we were being ridiculous and we both knew that it was good, that the content was good and the conversations we had were valuable. And it was just like, okay, we can't kick the can down the road forever. Let's do it. And we weren't ready. We weren't. Like we didn't really know the next level of mechanics of how to get it from, you know, my laptop into the cloud system of Spotify and Apple. Like we did, you know, but we figured it out, you know, it out. And it was, we learned so much in those next, probably we launched 2 episodes and then we've had a cadence of 1 a week ever since. But yeah, we learned so much as soon as we started publishing. It was like, okay, the next level of learning. It was like, okay, now how do we get this stuff on social media? How do we then get it on social media, but with reach so that it's actually, you know, doing what we want it to, or hitting who we want it to. So it was, I guess, like the analogy I was talking about earlier of having these small problems. It's like you're never without problems. It's just you level them up, you know. Goes from smaller problem to a different level of problem. But we did it. We're doing it. And honestly, I don't think Nathan and I have ever done anything with this much cadence and consistency. Like 20, I think we're at episode 23 or 24 at the moment, and we haven't missed a week. We're dedicated, committed. It's a priority. And it's been so fun.
That's so cool. And, you know, so for people who are thinking like, I want to do this thing, and, you know, you had the intention, I could hear that. And that really pushes you forward, but also you had great conversations with people and then you go, this is actually valuable. We need to share this. So I think involving people is a great idea. Like, I think it's actually essential to making a mark or doing something that makes a difference, because otherwise we can hide. Because it's like, I find that the more important something feels, the more vulnerable it feels also.
It can so feel like that. Like when the reward can be really high, but the risk can feel really high. And it's like, oh, I'm exposing this part of myself where it's like, I'm now, you know, I've shown you my weakness. Please don't poke it. please don't touch it.
That's right. But I know that you will have lots of fans and people appreciating your podcast. And so I'm sure that my listeners will go and check that out too. And,
and once we published it, we started getting feedback. And then that feedback was the fuel to keep going. So it's like, you know, catch-22, right? No, we weren't getting any feedback because we hadn't published it. But as soon as we published it, it was like, oh, okay, cool. We found the momentum and got going.
And you go, oh, thank goodness we were on the right track.
But we never would have known that if we'd held off and been like, no, we'll record the whole season before we launch. Like, what a silly idea that would have been.
So for anyone listening who is wanting to do something that feels like it takes some courage, that brave way of connecting with whoever it is that you want to connect with, what's your words of wisdom?
For me, I think the key to confidence is about having clarity. So the clearer you can be, the more confident you'll be. If you're really specific about what it is you want to do or you want to achieve, that confidence comes. It's like the feeling of confidence comes later. Like it doesn't come before the act, it comes after.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think, you know, if you can get clarity and certainty about why and what, the confidence will come and the courage will come.
Yeah, that's a beautiful note to wrap up on. Thank you so much, Sammi.
Wonderful
to talk to you.
What a cool chat.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Sammi today. And if you would like more, please check out all the Connect with Confidence podcasts. You can find that on kerriephipps.com. And you'll also see the Connect with Confidence coaching program. And so any resources that we can support you with, please contact us through any of the social mediums and let us know how we can support you to connect confidently in your world and make a bigger difference.